wonder if people ask, how can David Murathe not be involved at all in this dam, yet have such extensive material knowledge of it?
Because when these people came to me, the people who are the lowest evaluated, I took a personal interest. And this is the largest infrastructure project in Ukambani since independence. It's 63 billion shillings worth, all right? And for the legacy of His Excellency the President, they will always remember that this is the president. And you know the challenge of Ukambani is water. So we have a particular interest in making sure, and we follow up and we engage with these people, we engage with their embassy, we engage with their ambassador, all right? And tell them, please, it's about the reputation of Chinese companies, it's about the reputation of the Chinese government, and it's about the reputation of the Chinese engagement with Kenya. So,
okay, fair enough.
Let's
leave it at that. You know, I suppose all Kenyans certainly would welcome a genuine war against corruption. But in your opinion, politically, do you think the president could be opening more war fronts than he can afford at this time? He's acting like he doesn't need any political support. Here he is taking on governors and supposed issues with his deputy. In his own backyard, he's telling off MPs. I mean, this is still politics. The president is not the owner of political will. He will need it if he's going to complete his agenda. Biting off more than he can chew?
No. I think for the president, and I don't purport to speak for the president, I noticed the last interview you had with the deputy president, they called us busybodies. I don't speak for the president. But once you have known somebody for a long time, you know what they are up to and what they're about and what they are likely to do. This president is about how best he wants to be remembered. And nothing is going to come between him and his legacy. It's not friendship, it's not political considerations, it's not, I mean, I don't know how this thing will pan out, but I've said this in several caucuses. One of the things I believe we should remove the term limit of governors, for example. If a governor knows he's going home in the second term, he doesn't care. Because he's not going to seek re-election. All right? I think they should be left to be dealt with by the public. Because if I know I'll face an election in 2022, even if I'm on my second term, I will make sure I deliver to that electorate so that I get re-elected.
Do you think the same of the presidency?
If I know no matter how good I am going to go home, all right? I can ride roughshod to them because there's not a mistake.
Do you think the same of the presidency?
This term limit business, I have an issue with it myself, personally.
Including for the president?
No. The president has pronounced himself that he is no longer interested in another term. He has pronounced himself. There are those people who feel maybe we should not even entertain the thought that he can just walk.
Would you support an extension of term limits for the presidency in a possible referendum? Or
look at Germany. Angela Merkel has been in office for how long? 4, 5 terms?
Yes.
There are no term limits. If you look at the UK, you're in office until the public is fed up with you. The only place we talk about term limits is the US. All right? If you look at China, recently, they even changed their constitution to allow, you know, Xi Jinping was supposed to do 2 terms. They have removed it. Why?
So David Murathe would support a constitutional change that would extend the term limit of the president.
I'm not saying that. Already, there are proposals to extend the term like to a 1 7-year terms. A lot of these suggestions will come There'll be people saying, let's not even have a term limit. Let the people deal with it. And the circumstances vary from one area to another one.
You're saying it's not a bad idea? I'm looking for a concrete answer.
Personally?
Personally, what do you support?
I think in the African context, where people
in the Kenyan context,
abuse power.
In the Kenyan context,
I think we should have term limits.
Okay, we'll return to matters of referendum and governance a little later, but I want to just stick with the cabinet. And as you know, of course, the president has named what many are reading as a cautious choice in the replacement in an acting capacity of the Treasury docket, Uhuru Yatani. Why pick this man, do you think? What experience does he have in finance?
He's an economist.
All right. Is he also favorable because he's from a minority community?
Not necessarily. I don't know what informed the choice. There were a lot of people talking about the possible persons who would get that docket. You know that? That Aden Muhammad, a former banker, Macharia, a former banker, blah, blah, blah. In his wisdom, the president settled on. And remember, the PS was actually appointed to an appointed position. The PS's position is not acting. Muya. He was the PS for planning and economic development. So he is part of the treasury. So there's continuity.
Perhaps you could clarify for us, what was the agreement between then Mr. Kenyatta and Mr. Ruto in as far as sharing cabinet positions? I'm
not privy. But I know in the first administration, they more or less were sharing on a 50-50 basis, where if the deputy president settled on a certain docket and he had the minister, the permanent secretary, the accounting officer, would come from the choice of the president's side. But
in an interview, you said that the deputy president took all the plum positions in government, which provided opportunity to loot, and you quoted lands, energy, etc.
Finance.
Finance.
Agriculture.
So you are privy to what the arrangement was?
No, I was not privy. I'm just after the fact. The people who are aligned to him took most of the infrastructure dockets.
So this wasn't something that was documented by the party in terms of a coalition type agreement?
I am not aware that there is. You see, in politics, you had that same story about MOUs between President Kibaki and Raila, blah, blah, blah. To the best of my knowledge, in the Jubilee arrangement, there was nothing to that effect. Whatever happened must have been like a gentleman's agreement.
For one in politics to choose one alliance over another, then that should mean that the second alliance is more valuable, more strategic. I'm sure you would agree. And whilst many may agree that the handshake did in fact cool temperatures in the country, why does it appear that the president is willing to bend over backwards to accommodate the former prime minister at the expense of losing his deputy?
It is about putting Kenya first. And it is also about their convergence in terms of where did the rain start beating this country. We came together for a common purpose, to unite, to struggle for the freedom of this country, where people like Jaramogi would say there would be no independence without Kenyatta, where people would converge in Kisumu after the Kapenguria 6 were released and Kenyatta was still held in restriction. And they'll say we are not moving until Kenyatta is out. And everybody can sit around the table, and that is actually what is needed even today, and start saying, what's going on here? What are we doing? Whatever we do, we're fighting, we're throwing stones, business can't happen, and what? Just because we're having a political competition? Can we put our personal interests aside and at least address the developmental agenda for Wanjiku?
I think people would agree with that premise, David, but what becomes problematic is, first, I'm sure you agree or would maintain that Jubilee retained power legitimately, correct?
Right.
If that is the case, then does the handshake not also set a dangerous precedent where if